Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode. Back at you in video format. We have fixed the kinks. Everything is working okay. Yes, back at you with another one. With me today, as always, is the J-Man, JBT. How are you, my dude?
Nick is wearing a dressing gown. You are wearing a dressing gown. Watch on YouTube.
Nick is wearing a dressing gown. It is 6:13 p.m. on a Sunday. I am tired. I have work tomorrow. I'm in my dressing gown. Let me enjoy my life. You know, I'm unshaven. I'm unkempt. I'm disgusting, Jack. And it's for all for your viewing pleasure. I'm comfortable. I'm wearing no pants. I mean, who wears pants with a dressing gown? Probably most people, but not me. Not me. And that's what matters. I rarely wear pants, but you all know that. I'm very flippant with my attitude to pants. Damn work making me wear pants. I really relish my working from home days. I have almost a uniform in my own house, which is nothing, and it's great. It's fantastic. As always, this episode has started very, very well. And as always, as ready as I am to not wear pants, you can also find us equally as ready on Twitter at JBTNick, at the J-Man JBT. The Twitter profiles are there if you're watching us on YouTube. We are also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome website, podcast network, and YouTube network, which of course you're watching us on, where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you follow them on Twitter at OTG Basketball and subscribe to them on YouTube at OTG Basketball so you can watch JBT and every other video form that comes out on that channel. It's not just JBT. It's lots of good stuff. Facebook.com/justballthings. Give us a like and a follow there. And jbtpodcast@gmail.com, where you can email the show. We'll read them out if you want us to. If you don't, that's fine. DM us. That's fine. We're ready for conversations. It doesn't matter. All right, mate. I don't think this will be a long show today, but some juicy topics nonetheless. And we'll start, yeah, that's right, with the Busick-Manuel scale. Thank you. For those of you new to the podcast, this is a JBT-created scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or just a straight-up fact, as referenced by Jack's T-shirt. I believe you can still get those T-shirts, Jackie boy, at designtree.com.au. I don't think
DSGN DSGN tree.
dsgntree.com.au if you want to pick up some.
Not .au. No .au, mate.
Oh, sorry. I'm stuck in my Australian little bubble. Yes, dsgntree.com/offtheglass. We can pick up some nice merch. All right, Jackie boy. We'll start it off here. The play-in tournament. All the rage these days. There's a big race in the East. The West, I haven't really been paying attention to because I'm a Wizards fan, and the East is all that matters. But the play-in tournament devalues the regular season. Jack, where are you going with this one?
Now, I have two concurrent opinions here, Nick. The one being that, yes, the regular season is devalued, and we did hear Luka Doncic and Mark Cuban talk about that the other day, about the fact that you play 72 games, 82 games in a regular season for what to matter. If you're 7 to 10, the 9 and the 10 seeds suddenly get a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you should have done better, Jack. You should have played better.
I literally just said I have two concurrent views there. Let me finish the second one.
No.
The second one is that this is better for basketball. This is decreases the elements of tanking and makes late regular season basketball much more competitive in a way that it never is. It just generally, from April onwards, or from March, April in normal regular seasons, the basketball is just like, all right, let's get to the playoffs. And look, being a Nets fan right now, I just want to get to the playoffs as well. But for guys like you, for guys like the Grizzlies fans, Golden State fans, Pacers fans, Bulls fans, all these teams that are around that sort of mark, Charlotte Hornets fans, there's an element of just like, okay, there's some, and all the teams that those teams do happen to verse, those games matter for them. And I think it just makes it a bit more competitive. Certainly, but I think those two beliefs can be held at the same time, because the regular season is a 72, 82 game format, depending on whatever type of season we actually do have. Then we devalue the worth of that marathon by going, okay, if you guys are all around this sort of, if you finish in these sort of standings, well, you've earned the right to be a 7 or 8 seed. And in whatever, 50, 75, 80 seasons beforehand, it hasn't mattered. You're 7, you're 8, you guys in the playoffs. Whereas now you're 9 and 10, it's just like, all right, let's sneak in a little bit here. We need to get a couple of wins here in the postseason, in this play-in tournament sort of thing. And now that sort of matters. I think that there is an element of unfairness to it, but I do agree with you in the fact that, look, get yourself the 6th seed and you're not necessarily worrying about it. It does increase competition for the full 72 games. But this season overall as well, with the amount of injuries and the condensed nature of it all, it's hard to see the value in every single game as well. And we'll get to the Nets a little bit with their health and stuff later on, but the games don't matter as much anyway, because there's just so many of them. And, we've made our thoughts. I've made my thoughts quite a bit, knowing that, I think it needs to be a 58, maybe 60 game season overall, just for competitive balance and to increase the value of each game. We're both AFL fans here, and you've got a 23-week season, and every single game is an event. The NFL does the same sort of thing. I think EPL, the EPL fixture, obviously, it does get overweighed and by Champions League and other Europa League sort of formats and FA Cups, but the EPL is 1 game a week. Normally, obviously, in this condensed nature again, that has been increased. But I think the value of the games, as well as the value of the regular season, it has been devalued by the play-in tournament. Not to say that I don't agree with it, and I think it does increase the competitive balance in the late season formats.
I think you're talking too broadly, Jack, because if you take the same thinking that you're thinking, I said thinking a lot just then. If you take the same vein that you're going down, then playoffs devalue the regular season. Because if you're the best regular season team, Jack, why do you have to then compete to be like, well, I was the best team?
Where, like, the title is decided by the regular season. The regular season is the marathon. It is the format, and it's the same with most other formats and most other. And
then, well, I agree with you. But then saying that the play-in tournament devalues the regular season is like saying, well, what's the point in finishing first? Because I haven't won the league. I haven't been crowned the best team in the West. I haven't been crowned anything. I just get home court a couple of times, and it's the same thing with the play-in tournament. If you finish higher and higher and higher, you've got more of a chance to get into the playoffs. If you finish, it's like saying finishing seventh is as good as finishing 10th. No. There are still nuances in this play-in tournament that reward. Yeah, but those nuances aren't
as great as when you finish 6th. And hypothetically speaking, it's the Mavs and say the Portland Trailblazers, and the Mavs finish 1 game or half a game ahead of the Trailblazers or another team around that sort of format, or the 7th seed, whether it's say the Hawks or the Celtics or the Heat, finish half a game, behind the Knicks or whoever else it might be. Mm-hmm. We saw the play-in tournament in the bubble, and we saw that there were extra nuances, as you sort of alluded to, with if you're within 4 games of this team or whatever. If you have accumulated this advantage throughout the regular season, and say that the Dallas Mavericks finished with the 6th seed. Right now it's the Lakers, funnily enough. But if the Dallas Mavericks finished with the 6th seed and they're 5 games above the 7th seed, or the 7th seed, and it's not that close, or the 7th and the 8th seed, I just don't understand, because I still think that the regular season should matter, but I think that the NBA's already done with the general format in general that it doesn't really matter anyway, because to be honest, I haven't been as heavily invested in the regular season overall as I have been in seasons past, because there's just so much to keep up with, and it's just like, it's overbearing in terms of how many games there are. Yeah. And it's just like, sometimes, we love here our food analogies or whatever. I love me some potato chips, but I'm not going to have 4 packets of Tyrell's salt and vinegar and cheese and onion, because, it makes me sick. It's overbearing. And I think that's what the regular season has turned into. And that's a broader discussion to have for another day. But I still think, Nick, that you can hold the view that I have in saying that the regular season is devalued by having this postseason tournament. but still think that it is a good thing. Like, why can't two beliefs
I don't.
be?
I agree that it can. Of course, it can. Sure, you can think that it devalues it, but I wholeheartedly disagree. That I mean, like you said, the NBA don't value the regular season anyway. If it's no different to being like, well, you know, I finished sixth, I finished fourth, I finished seventh. The regular season still, the standing still matters, and you still get some sort of advantage dependent on your standing. And now with the play-in tournament, it is, of course it is. The single game is your home.
They both have to, like, if you're seventh,
the single game is your home game. That's the advantage, Jack.
But like in the current season and current climate where there's no crowds, it doesn't really matter.
Don't worry about this season. This season's not going to. This season is the capacity of crowds in this season is not going to continue. You can't treat this season as the norm going forward. The advantage is the home ground, because then what's the difference between finishing first, where you get that extra game at home every series?
In a series,
that's the only advantage, Jack.
In a series of games, home court matters. In a one-game scenario where it's, you know, winner takes all, I don't think it matters at all, unless it's Denver.
It's the same thing, Jack, because it's 4 games at home versus 3 games away. So when you get down to that game 7 where the advantage matters, that game 7 is at your home. So this single game, which is like a game 7, is a single game knockout. This single game knockout is at that team's home. It's as much of an advantage as having that extra home game in a 7-game series. Of course, you're probably going to knock any team out if you're better than that, because 7 games, I believe, truly gives you the opportunity to show that you are the better team. A single game doesn't have that. Anything can happen in a single game. That's what makes it so exciting. Any team can win, really. It is good for basketball. I really like it. You know, we're talking about, like, I'm invested in the Pacers season right now. I know that they absolutely smoked the friggin' Thunder today by 60 points, because that directly affects the Wizards.
Who isn't smoking the Thunder by 60 points? Oh, wait, Boston, sorry.
Yes. You know, we lost to the Mavs today, which was really by 1 point, which was hard. And normally I wouldn't give a shit about these games. I would have already turned in the season waiting for the playoffs. And so maybe as someone in the first seed, you're not as invested in the regular season. But this is sort of crunch time for 8 teams in the NBA, between 4 to 7, and even between 7 and 10, and maybe even beyond that, depending on how close they are. Raptors fans still believe that
especially in the East, like from 4 to 11, it's literally close.
Well, yeah, that's right. You know, Raptors and Bulls are still sniffing playoffs in 11th and 12th, so. It certainly made the second half of the season more interesting for these guys, for sure. So I agree that it's good, but in terms of the actual topic that it devalues the regular season, this is just a straight alternative fact for me, because if you were truly the better team across 82 games, you should have shown that, and you wouldn't even be close to the 7th.
This season of all seasons, Nick, I think it's a bit rich to say that as well, when we've had COVID absences ravage most, if not all, teams in some vein or other, except for like the Pacers. I think Full Access Pacers, Corey Waldron's account, he sort of posted that they've been the team that's been least affected by it overall. But, you know, the Mavs, your Wizards, the Spurs, the Celtics and stuff. So, look, I get it. And I actually like it when we disagree, because it's been a while since we've sort of been really heated in our disagreements. And I think that while I agree with some of your points, I just think that there needs to be greater value for the regular. I think my point overall is that value needs to be provided.
If you reduce the amount of games, then every game tends to matter, and I felt like that's the avenue that you were sort of tending towards.
Basically, I'm just trying
and I
to
do agree with
increase
that.
and put credence on the regular season. I want to watch every game that Geelong plays. I want to watch every game that the Doggies play in the AFL, because all of them matter. It doesn't matter if it's against freaking Collingwood or if it's against Richmond, because those 4 points matter. Whereas, your win against, the Washington Wizards or whoever else it might be against, while it matters, I guess, a little bit for the Brooklyn Nets in terms of their fighting for the 1 seed and the advantages they'll get there in terms of having an easier run, not having to go through the Bucks and the Sixers. I think it does matter, but I think it's being preached quite a bit from the Nets brass, including Steve Nash, Jeff Green, Kevin Durant, and everyone else, that it doesn't really matter because they just want to be healthy, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But Nick, we've got to get to them.
One more thing. I'm sorry. If this truly does devalue the regular season, I mean, I am now sort of thinking maybe it can have a very positive effect to the regular season, because now, like we're saying, the guys in 10th and whatever, the teams that can rise up into the playoffs care more about these later games, care more about the regular season. Their regular season means a lot more. And then if we take a team like the Mavs, for example, maybe on the cusp, maybe the Lakers, like on the precipice of maybe slipping into 7th, their regular season means more. They're more invested in these late games in May, in June, or June will be the playoffs. But they would be more invested in these games and not coasting, because, whether I finish 7th or 6th or 7th, doesn't matter. Now there is a massive, like you said, there's a massive difference. So treat the regular season games with respect. And so that could be an avenue that you could say, well, it actually it increases the value of more games.
It's about perspective, I guess. I hear what you're sort of saying. It's just that in general, it's the advantages for the 1 to 6 and the 1 to 7. We could discuss this for quite a while, and it is a decent topic. So I wanted to kick off with it because I think a lot of people are talking about it. Luka Doncic spoke about it a little bit ago, and there are points that I agree with, and I think that you can hold points that might not necessarily coalesce, but at the same time, that they still do relate to each other to an extent. But Nick, a team that's certainly not going to be in the play-in tournament is the Denver Nuggets, and what they've been doing in Jamal Murray's absence has been pretty goddamn incredible. 9-1 in his absence. And Nick, I put to you, Denver is a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs, even with Jamal Murray's absence.
It has been, it's been interesting because I really thought that this would obviously not go the way that it has gone. I really thought that Jokic's MVP case would have been knocked a little bit because you expect the Nuggets to not win as many games with their second best player out. But, Michael Porter Jr. has been freaking...
Want some stats, Nick? Want some stats about Michael Porter Jr. since
mate.
Jamal Murray's gone down? Over 25 points a game, over 6 rebounds. He needs to improve his assists, but when you've got Jokic out there, you don't necessarily have to. But the efficiency from the field is incredible. Nearly 57% from the field and over 50% from 3. It is goddamn incredible what he has been doing. And, we know what he's been doing. He sort of broke out a little bit in the bubble. And, the opportunities that he's been given, obviously, in Murray's absence, the offensive burden does increase for him. He's a goddamn phenom. He's Kevin Durant-like with his size and ability to create his own shot. And, Joker's always going to find you open. And he's had some absolutely incredible passes. And, he might be one of the best players in the NBA right now. There's no doubt that he is the MVP. But, also the absence of Will Barton and Monty Morris. They've lost a little bit of their depth here and there. But, I think just the leadership and I think the coaching of Michael Malone as well is something that I think doesn't get enough credit. I think he deserves to be in that Coach of the Year conversation. I know you are a fan of him sometimes, you're not a fan of him other times, but what he's done this season, the absence of some of his best players, we necessarily thought that Michael Malone, as soon as Murray went down, that was the season over. And look, at this point in time, they're going to be versing the Los Angeles Lakers. And is that a first-round series that you necessarily want? Probably not. Now, obviously, LeBron James has said he's at not 100% and he's never going to be at 100%. Funnily enough, I think that's a narrative that he's sort of creating for himself that works out kind of well if the Lakers don't win, because he's just like, well, I said this to you guys a couple of weeks ago that I'm not at 100%. That I was never going to win this one. Similar to when, his first year in Lakerland. But off the Lakers tangent, with Joker, you're generally going to be, you have the best player on the floor. or one of the best players on the floor in a playoff series. And his dominance is pronounced. We've seen his postseason dominance. We saw it last year in the bubble, how goddamn incredible he is, and some of the shots that he takes. You know,
I mean, we're seeing them on the screen. We're seeing them on the screen now. The guy's got the most beautiful rainbow in the NBA. I don't think it's a stretch to
Serbian rainbows
to say that it is gorgeous. The guy's offensive prowess is tremendous. I got a stat here about the Nuggets. Not crazy, but over the 10 game stretch, they have the third best net rating at a 7.9 net rating. Give me the two teams who are above them over this 10 game stretch.
The Sixers?
Nope. You will.
The Suns?
Nope. It's the Knicks and the Wizards. The Wizards are a 9.7 net rating right now because over the last 10 games, we have the second best defense in the league.
Some non-Wizards woes. You know, you don't have to play the music just there, Nicky boy. I know that's a good thing for you, but what are your thoughts? Do you think that the Nuggets can make some noise in the postseason? I think they were somewhat fortuitous in the playoff bubble. I think they created a little bit of their own luck at the same time, and you know, Joker is just the Joker. But you know, if Will Barton gets his help going, love me a bit of Facundo Campazzo as well. He's a nice little player in the absence of Jamal Murray, but. You know, I still think that, you know, you come up against some of these better teams. If they get the Lakers in the first round, then that would be pretty goddamn awful. But I want to see them against the Mavs. I think that would be a pretty fun series, seeing the two, you know, Bolton dudes go strut their stuff. But do you think that there is a chance that Denver can win a couple of rounds even with the absence of Jamal Murray?
I think it's possible, and it's all dependent on matchups. Like you said, the Lakers are that sort of team that can... you know, have slipped because of the injuries. And then once everyone comes back healthy, they're that 6th seed or 7th seed that could be a number 1 seed, you know, like, and that's freaking scary because it means that your top 4 side could lose in the first round. That being said, I think the playoffs are when the cracks will start showing in the Nuggets team, I think. No playoff experience for Michael Porter Jr. That being said, no playoff experience limited playoff experience for Jamal Murray, who absolutely showed up last playoffs to the point where I was calling it Jamal Murray's team. Some takes do not age that well, but he was playing that good. And so he will obviously be sorely missed in the playoffs. When a team game plans, when you're playing night in, night out against the same team, it's a different game, Jack. It's not a regular season game anymore. And I wonder if the depth of the Nuggets that has taken a hit will start to crack in the playoffs. So I don't think it's crazy to say that they're not going to go as far as if they had Jamal Murray. And if they get a poor matchup, I can certainly see a first round bounce for the Nuggets, which would be an absolute travesty. Even if it is against the Lakers. 100% it would be, Jack. You've got the MVP, third in the West. Like, this is the season for a lot of Nuggets fans, and I think...
Yeah, but it's not with Jamal when your second best player is injured. Like, the expectations aren't necessarily there. You know,
the expectation's not going to be losing first round. I mean...
Yeah, but it's going up against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They're not going to be the favourites, Nick. And if those guys are at least... 80-90% of their health, they're going to be the favorites, and that's just an unfavorable matchup. If it happens against the Mavericks or the Blazers or one of these other teams, then maybe even the Clippers. I think that they match up kind of well with the Clippers. We saw that in their win again today, and they obviously proved it last postseason as well. But obviously Kawhi needs to get himself back and healthy and fit too. But Paul George needs to stop taking mid-range jumpers. And but in saying that, if it's happens to be an upset by a team that isn't the Lakers, then I do agree with you. I'm on your side there. But the Lakers, if whoever they get in the first round, whether it's the Suns, they might slip even further into the play-in tournament. They go against the Lakers, the Jazz, whoever it is, or maybe it happens to be, their crosstown rival in the Clippers, and that would be a lot of fun too. So I think that while an upset would be disappointing, if it is against anyone but the Lakers, it is. But if it's against the Lakers, I don't think it is at all.
That's fair. I think there will be still a sour taste, even if they do lose to the Lakers. I mean, there's going to be a sour taste. Maybe they're not going to be out, pitchforks and torches going for, Jokic's head. Proverbially. But it will still leave a sour taste in many of the Nuggets fans' mouths if they do exit in the first round, given the fantastic season that Jokic has had. I mean, it would be the same feeling for Bucks fans when they lost, when they exited second round.
Yep, second round.
Not favourable matchups for sure. Versing good teams. You're obviously versing good teams in the playoffs, but it's still like they're not super angry about it, but it just doesn't sit right. Like they should have done more. There was a few other factors. There's like underperforming players as well that that exacerbates that. But I think the feeling will be the same.
Look, I had a feeling you were probably going to bring up the Bucks, and while I see the comparison, I thought that their ability to not change and at all and show a lack of flexibility, with their stars and the lack of minutes is a symptom of Mike Budenholzer's coaching, and I think the injury obviously to Giannis and whatever, but I think the Heat hadn't beat even with Giannis playing, to be honest, and I think that the expectations for the Bucks were championship heading in. Their health was much greater. Chris Middleton was still healthy. They had all their other guys still fit and firing. Whereas the Nuggets right now are struggling to put a fit and healthy roster out there outside of Porter and Jokic. But
these last 10 games though could inspire faith in the Nuggets. Can possibly elevate that expectation, being like, well, we're obviously not missing a beat with Jamal Murray. We're obviously still a great team. So we've obviously maintained the third seed. So why can't we challenge? Why can't we get past the first seed? Why can't we really challenge the Lakers? If they lose to the Lakers in 7, fair enough. If they lose in anything less than 7, that's an upset. I would not be happy.
I strongly disagree with that, because if the Lakers are anywhere near full health, they'll be the championship favourites alongside the Brooklyn Nets, and I think losing to the championship favourites is not a bad thing at all. I don't think Jokic. You got to look at the manner in which they lose. It's like again, this is an argument we can have for until the cows come home.
We're disagreeing, Jack. This is great. This is great content.
In saying that, I just think that it's the manner in which you lose. It's like the Mavs lost in 5 to the Clippers, but I thought that they put up quite a feisty little first round matchup, and I think that that's what probably we would likely see from the Nuggets against the Lakers if LeBron gets to 90% health and Davis starts to get to some health and Andre Drummond stops being Andre Drummond.
5 is a. I agree with that take, because it was the Mavs against the Clippers, like this mighty Clippers team against Luka's first stint in the playoffs. I say that with a maybe. Is that correct? Yeah, I think that is correct. A new team, an upcoming team. With I guess little expectation. There's a big expectation on the Nuggets.
There is an expectation because Jamal Murray's injured. It's as simple as that. And Jamal Murray, like you said, was their best player in the postseason. Yes. So you take away your best postseason player, or your best postseason player, or 1A, 1B, then the expectations automatically go down. It's like if the Brooklyn Nets, and we'll get to Brooklyn Nets in a little bit right after I have a mini rant here. If the Brooklyn Nets have Harden, KD, or Kyrie out, then their expectations to win the championship are certainly de-escalated, but I think that the expectations on them are going to be much higher because of the timeline and the age trajectories of them. But I guess, Nick, you might as well play that Brooklyn Bits music for me, mate.
Oh, beautiful stuff, Jackie boy. Brooklyn Bits topic this week. The only thing that can prevent the Nets from postseason success is the team's health. Jack, talk to me. Why is this a fact?
Well, I think the big thing is, Nick.
Why is this a
and
fact,
everyone-
Jack? I'm not asking you what you think it is. Why is it a fact?
Well, look, it's close to a fact, Nick. I think it's a Wikipedia fact. I don't want to, criticize or not show love to so many other postseason performers. The Lakers, the Jazz, the Suns, and the Sixers, the Bucks. All these guys have a really good shot at winning that chip, and the Brooklyn Nets with their stacked amount of talent, that big scary hours 3. I think that if you got those 3 guys out there in a postseason game, and you're 5 minutes down and you need some buckets, there isn't a team that's going to be able to create shots better than Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden and Joe Harris as well, and maybe a bit of Clax time as well. But in all honesty, Nick, I think the big thing is because for 8 games, the big 3 have only played 176 minutes together. It's the stat that goes around until the cows come home.
Yeah.
I also do think that more than any other team, these 3 guys have an innate chemistry and knowledge and understanding and IQ that they can just go out there and play and dominate, like in a way that I think few teams in the history of this game have, and maybe no team in the history has. So I think that while health is there, if we're looking at, say, what am I more worried about? Is it the Sixers? Is it the Bucks? Is it the Lakers? Or is it the Brooklyn Nets health? My biggest worry is the Brooklyn Nets health, Nick. That's the number one top of the list. Is James Harden going to have those hamstrings fit and firing? Is his conditioning going to be okay? Is Kevin Durant going to be playing back-to-backs 38 minutes plus? Is Kyrie Irving going to be doing the same sort of thing? Ultimately, that is the thing I'm most worried about. And it's something that I think has some legitimacy to it. But I also do think that how the regular season is being handled by Steve Nash, Sean Marks, and the players themselves. Kevin Durant's choosing to come off the bench in certain games because he's like, you know what, I'm going to get my 28 minutes and I want to get them late when they're going to matter. And Kevin Durant's a goddamn superstar. He'd be the MVP if he'd played 45 games or more. He's been absolutely incredible in the games he has played. And to people that are discrediting him in any sort of fashion, Nate Duncan, you're clearly not watching enough Brooklyn Nets basketball because he's Duncan still, and he's passing like a goddamn madman. He's still Kevin freaking Durant. You know who he is, as he said many times before. But Nick, the thing I am most worried about, it's not the Sixers, not the Bucks, not the Lakers. It's their health, because when the Brooklyn Nets are out there and their superstars are healthy, it's a scary sight to watch. Pardon the pun.
You're right. I mean, that is 100%. And we're seeing, mainly, I thought these were Nets highlights. No, it's Kevin Durant highlights. I was like, there's a lot of Kevin Durant highlights in this Nets highlight package. The guy's great. The guy's amazing. And, I said it at the start of the season. You've watched the team now, Jack, a lot more than me. What I said at the start of the season was that your entire finals, chances rested in Kevin Durant's hands. Is that still the case?
I said the same thing, Nick. I said that the Nets will go as far as Kevin Durant will take them.
Yep.
And look, there might be a small chance that if Harden or Kyrie are unhealthy, but you still have KD and one of the other two, that the Nets could make the finals and maybe even win it all. I'm not necessarily saying that is the case. I think that their greatest chances obviously rely on full health. But Kevin Durant is so individually dominant, and he has showed dominance on both ends of the floor. We're obviously seeing all the offensive highlights here, but I do love what he's been doing defensively too, in terms of his ability to allow us to play small ball. Him and Jeff Green showing some switchability. Claxton will be back soon as well. I just think that Kevin Durant is just so individually great, in a way that it's just, there are few in the history of the game that are. It's LeBron James and Kevin Durant right now that have that individual dominance in all facets of the game, defensively and offensively. So, look, they will go as far as Kevin Durant takes them, and probably the big three, Nick. But, I don't want to discredit, because I think Joel Embiid is going to be a tough matchup. I think the Bucks have a really nice defensive trio that could give the Nets some trouble. And, the regular season games that are coming up tomorrow and the day after. So, I think in a couple of days, the sort of back-to-back series against the Bucks are going to be a nice little litmus test. Even though Harden won't be there, I still think it's going to be, a pretty nice test heading into the postseason, and whether the Nets can still claim that top seed, which I think is going to hold some advantages. But in all honesty, Nick, it's health. And I think that the way the Nets have been prioritizing health overall, resting guys here or there, not playing back-to-backs, whether it's Blake Griffin or Bruce Brown in saying that too. Whoever else it is, there are a few guys in this roster, other than probably Joe Harris, that have played close to the full amount of the 60 or so games that the Nets have played this season.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess my take is that it's almost exactly the same as yours. I just mentioned it before. Kevin Durant's health will determine the season for Nets. The jump is not so ludicrously large that they're going to get bounced in the first round without Kevin Durant. That would be crazy. But they certainly may not make the finals if Kevin Durant is not healthy. And we're talking even, I think his impact is still there even if he is playing limited minutes, which obviously in the playoffs he's not going to want to play limited minutes. But if they are forced to, his impact is still there. That even a Kevin Durant playing 20 minutes is a massive boon.
He didn't miss a shot, I'm pretty sure, in his return off that. And it was just like, look, any version of Kevin Durant. And look, I'll say the same thing for James Harden as well, because I think James Harden's ability to just affect the game in a way where, he would be playing with the second unit and elevate them in a way, offensively as well as defensively in the post as well. And, his ability to run the floor, to create shots for himself and others. Kyrie Irving has done an incredible job of that in the absence of KD and James Harden in that respect too. But, if I'm ranking things that I'm sort of fretting about in terms of the Brooklyn Nets winning the Larry O'B, Nick, it's health, it's a healthy Lakers team, it's the Sixers, and it's the Bucks.
Yep.
That's my sort of list right now. And look, those could chop and change depending on if Joel Embiid goes on a monster tear.
So the Bucks are a bigger threat than the Sixers in your eyes?
So the Sixers and the Bucks. I thought that I said the Sixers first, then the Bucks. But look, the Bucks do match up well, and maybe after I see these two games this week against the Bucks, my thoughts will change. Maybe Giannis and Drew Holiday, as well as Chris Middleton, do some crazy things. Maybe PJ Tucker's, addition, he finally he's more pronounced against sort of these better teams. But we'll wait and see, Nick. I think health is, and look, you could probably throw this take for so many other teams. If the Denver Nuggets were healthy right now, the discussion we had before would be null and void, and we'd be talking about the fact that are they a truly legitimate championship contender? And I think that I would say absolutely if Jamal Murray is healthy. So look, we don't want any more injuries in any sport. It's the worst thing about sport in general. I tweeted out every time a big injury happens, and it's frustrating that it keeps happening, whether it's in soccer, football, the NBA, whatever sport it is. Let's just turn off injuries. Come on, guys.
If only this were 2K. If only this were 2K. Another guy who's actually been playing out of his goddamn mind. We're playing Wizards Woes music, but this is a Wizards Wonders section.
The Washington Wizards are making noise.
I drank some bleach all the way down to the blue, and now I'm starting to feel like Harry Potter.
No drinking bleach for Wizards fans today, or this week, or for the past month. It has been, we have been on cloud nine. It's been great. Even with the loss today, that we've gone 8-2 in our last 10, and I'm not sure if NBA.com has updated, because I feel like that's not right. I feel like it's 7-3 now. Anyway, we're living life to our fullest. And Jack, I'll ask this one of you first. Russell Westbrook deserves all NBA consideration.
Twitter fact for this one, Nick, because it almost reminds me a little bit of last season in Houston, when after post-Clint Capella trade, Russell Westbrook, we were having arguments when we were talking about on the podcast, is he the best player on the Houston Rockets? And there were times where he was genuinely playing better than James Harden. And there are games where right now Russell Westbrook is playing better than Bradley Beal. But at the same time, Bradley Beal has done it game after game after game. There's a reason why. I'm pretty sure he's still leading the NBA in scoring, but Stephen Curry's probably hot on his tail if I'm not mistaken. They're probably stats haven't been updated since then. But I think there's some consideration, but it'd have to be a third team, Nick. And in terms of like third team guys that you can probably throw in there, is James Harden's 41 games good enough for him? Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, These sort of guys, Chris Paul's obviously going to be first to the all-second team. And then you got Lillard, Curry, and Doncic are your locks there. And I think Kyrie Irving probably deserves it over him as well. Again, I'm probably showing a level of bias, whether it's Irving or Harden, one of those dudes probably. I'd still have both of them above Russell Westbrook, because I also do think that, and this stat has been known as well. I know you love Russ, Nick. You are now on the Russ stand-em, and you would change your mind if you could in 2017 to give him the MVP, and I'll probably change my mind back to Harden. It's funny how things change so quickly. But in all honesty, the Wizards have been worse when Russell Westbrook is on the floor. Like, just statistically, you're looking at the net ratings and all those different things. When you have Beal and Westbrook out there, yeah, obviously they're much better. But I will also say that when Russell Westbrook gets triple doubles, a lot of people think that those are empty numbers, but I can't remember where I heard this stat, but it's nearly 75% of the time where Russell Westbrook gets a triple-double, his team gets wins. Whether it's in OKC, Houston, Washington, Russell Westbrook triple-doubles are genuinely a good thing. But ultimately, I think that the guard class is far too stacked, and I think there are candidates that have showed a level more consistency and brilliance individually that I think has been better than Russell Westbrook. And I don't think he's done it for long enough to actually garner himself an All-NBA spot, which is one of the true accolades that we do believe in and we probably take the most seriously, because the names that I rattled off there, I'm not sure what you think, Nick, but I do think they've had better seasons and have a better claim for one of those guard spots in 1, 2, or the third team.
Yeah, of course. I was a big Russell Westbrook doubter, and early in the season, I think that that sort of was, a lot of Wizards fans were on that same boat as well, and obviously coming from the Rockets, a lot of NBA fans were saying the same thing. He started a little bit slow, still amazing. Like, he's a highlight man. He's so quick on that first step. His shot selection is interesting. His shot efficiency is also suspect. But I mean, the guy's passing is incredible. The guy's speed. I mean, the things that have made him an MVP, he's still incredible at what, age 32?
32, 31,
32.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's incredible. But this question is essentially asking, do the Washington Wizards deserve 2 All-NBA players? Because
no.
Exactly. There are 6 guard spots, Jack, on the All-NBA team, and 2 of them cannot go to the Washington Wizards.
I think the guard spot is the hardest one to pick, Nick, to be honest. The names that I rattle off there, Bradley Beal is first or second. No, he's second or third, not first.
Yeah,
First, it goes to Steph and Luka. And I actually don't know if they've actually accredited as Luka a forward or a guard yet, so that's something to keep an eye out for.
Are you not even putting Harden in? I would have thought that you would have picked Curry and Harden as your...
I think
team.
that if we're going... I think Harden's, everyone's talks about he started with
higher
Houston
in the MVP, higher in the MVP chats than Luka.
Look, I disagree. I think Luka, he'd be fifth or in my ballot or whatever. Whereas Harden, I think the availability for MVP, I don't think availability matters as much with All NBA. I think it just matters individual brilliance and just the resume overall and what you did in the games you were available. If there was above 50% of it, which for Harden it is, and I don't know if he's going to be back before the end of the regular season. I think he'll be back probably the first round of the playoffs somewhere around that time. But I think I'll probably, honestly, and this might be a take, I might give Kyrie the nod out of all Brooklyn Nets players, because his statistical season this year, it's insane. He's pretty
very, very good.
Near 50-40-90 season. We'll probably get into our All-NBA ballots once we do a bit more research, come closer to the end of the regular season, near playoff time, and we'll probably get to some award stuff there. But, I think Kyrie probably hasn't gotten enough credit. And, in the MVP tracker on Basketball Reference, I'm pretty sure I saw that it was like 4th or 5th.
Yeah, he's quite high.
So, all honesty, I like the fact that we've still remained a semblance of objectivity about our own teams and our own players. But Bradley Beal gets it, so you can't get greedy and want 2 Washington Wizards players. And look, maybe Robin Lopez gets a bit of a sniff at Defensive Player of the Year. Who knows?
Ooh. Hey, I'm putting Rolo for MVP. The man can't miss a hook shot. It is actually... It's baffling. I don't have the sort of the second spectrum stats, but just from the eye test, man, it's money. It's absolute cash. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're not talking about Robert Lopez on this goddamn podcast. Yeah, I mean, Russell Westbrook's been fantastic. He is a tremendous player. The guys that say it's the empty stats, sure, they don't really account in wins. And I was saying like stat stuffing with the rebounds because he does take a lot of easy defensive rebounds. But then the guy is also, there are also highlights of him out rebounding centers. The guy just can read the flight of the ball.
He's the best guard rebounder in the history of the game.
Of course, 100%.
It's as simple as that.
The people that belittle that achievement, I mean, and I used to be one of them for sure. It all comes from ignorance. And I'm ignorant about a lot of things about basketball, Jackie boy. That is no secret. But I have become privy to what Russell Westbrook brings to a team. And when he's on your team, you don't look at the field goal percentage, which is what I always did. You don't look at and it's the field goal percentage that really is the egregious one, because it is quite bad. It's the fact that he can turn on in a fourth quarter and hit you 2 threes. Doesn't matter that he's missed the previous 10. He seems to just hit timely buckets, especially in this stretch. I've obviously said that he is, taken those shots and they haven't gone quite to plan. The guy is averaging a triple-double, not even close. He's not teetering with one. By far and away averaging a triple-double this year. 11 assists. I mean, as a teammate, I don't think there would be any other player that you would want to play with other than Russell Westbrook. Like, there may be a couple. But Russell Westbrook just seems like such a fantastic team guy. Despite the fact he might take some bad shots. He's also a selfless player. He's motivating. It's just all manner of things. But you're not an all NBA player. I'm sorry. After talking him up so much. I mean, we're just not good enough. Just not good enough. And the guard spot is hotly contested. So that's as simple as it is.
Simple as that. Another simple pod for the listeners out there.
And it's classic JBT fashion. Have we managed to stretch 4 topics into 45 minutes? We're good at what we do, Jackie boy. Well, that's debatable. We'll say yes. We'll let you guys decide. Rate and review. 5 stars only, please. So that just about does it for another week. So I'd like to say thank you for tuning in to Just Ball Things. As always, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, we will be there. If you are listening to us on Apple, as I mentioned, 5-star rating and review. Helps us out a bunch in terms of rankings and just being able to find the show. So we'd appreciate it. If you are catching us on YouTube, which I hope you all are, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell as well, so you know when fresh content comes out by by the OTG network. Jack, I can never do this outro without stumbling over my goddamn words. Remember, it is you guys that make this show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week,
keep balling, superstars.